Let me ask you something. If Jesus never claimed to be God, why did the people who heard him try to kill him for it? That's the part people skip. You will hear people say, he never said the exact words, I am God. But in that culture, you didn't need to say it that way. You proved it by what you claim, by the authority you took, and by the identity you revealed. So let's actually look at what he said and how people responded. In John chapter 8, verse 58, Jesus says, before Abraham was, I am. That's not just a statement about existing before Abraham. That's a statement loaded with identity. Because I am is the name God revealed in Exodus chapter 3, verse 14. So when Jesus says that, he's not just talking about time, he's identifying himself with God. And the people listening didn't take it lightly. They picked up stones to kill him, not because they were confused, but because they understood exactly what he was claiming. Then in John chapter 10, verse 30, Jesus says, I and the Father are one. People often try to explain that away as unity and purpose, but the reaction tells you how it was heard. The people picked up stones again and said plainly, you, being a man, make yourself God? That's not an assumption. That's their interpretation of his claim. And Jesus doesn't correct them or soften it. He continues speaking with the same authority. Now look at another moment in Mark chapter 2, verse 5 and 7, where Jesus tells a man, your sins are forgiven. That might sound normal today, but in that context, it was a direct claim to something only God can do. The religious leaders immediately respond, who can forgive sins but God alone? And instead of backing off, Jesus proves his authority by healing the man, showing that he isn't speaking as a messenger, passing along God's words. He's acting with God's authority himself. Then after the resurrection, in John chapter 20, verse 28, Thomas looks at Jesus and says, my Lord and my God. That's as direct as it gets. There's no metaphor there, and there's no symbiotic language. Just as clear declaration. And Jesus accepts it without correction. If that statement was wrong, that would have been a moment to fix it. But he doesn't, because it aligns with who he is. Here's where the confusion usually comes in. People are looking for the one exact sentence, I am God, as if truth only counts if it's said in the modern, simplified phrases. But Jesus didn't speak that way. Instead, he made claims only God can make and took on authority only God has, accepted recognition that belongs to God, and allowed people to respond to him accordingly. The people around him were confused. They reacted strongly, either in belief or in rejection, because they understood the weight of what he said or what he was saying. And when you think about it, it actually explains everything. If Jesus never claimed to be God, then his execution doesn't make sense. People don't crucify someone for teaching love or kindness, but if he claimed divine authority, if he placed himself equal with God, then the reaction, the anger, and the ultimately the cross all make sense within that context, right? Jesus didn't avoid saying he was God. He revealed it through his words, his authority, and his actions in a way that made it unmistakably to those listening. So clear, right? So clear that some believed and others saw it as a threat worth killing him for it. So the real question isn't just whether he said the exact words, I am God. The real question is this: if the people who heard him understood him clearly, what are you hearing right now?